So this last part I want to talk about, everybody asks about PARTIF or grant applications. How can we, if we do a multi-jurisdictional plan, can we make sure that if, say my county does a plan, but I'm just one town in that county, can I submit that plan and get points for it if I'm applying as a town? So we want to look at that and just kind of point out that, we use best practices when we do the definitions for planning documents, and I'll go through some of those for PARTIF, and just kind of how you can look at these financial and logistical challenges. Change my slides here. So as we kind of touched over planning phases, information gathering, stakeholder engagement, inventory, recommendations, implementation. I think we had great examples from both RG and from Doug on that, and with the Park Services efforts on that implementation piece. So as we think about that and why planning, I think we've all touched on this too. It provides that guidance and direction, criteria for how do we evaluate things, how do we prioritize things, and then how do we justify use it to justify the decisions. And some of those graphics that Doug showed, I think were showcase that very well, because you've got to go and get funding for all of this. The other piece I liked on the multi-jurisdictional, I'm kind of talking about towns and municipalities, especially when we're talking about PARTIF, because those are the eligible applicants. But your partners might include others, healthcare organizations. I know RG had an example that was one of their partners. Nonprofits, other groups should all be in there. So with PARTIF and most grants, when we think about park planning, you have a site-specific plan for one park, the comprehensive system-wide plan for parks and recreation, and that's more what we're talking about with multi-jurisdictional plans, but also a greenway system master plan that kind of ties in with both of those, and capital improvement. But we're going to talk about the comprehensive system-wide plan. And this comes from the PARTIF application, and if you go through that, and I'll share a link where you can watch our application video and download a copy of the application, but it has to be for how a local government will address recreation needs of the citizens in its jurisdiction. So when we started this, again, it was always singular. We're talking about a jurisdiction, but if you have a multi-jurisdictional plan, think about that as your group. But again, you also want to have each individual town or community. So the last part on this definition is a local government may use a multi-jurisdictional plan if it satisfies the above criteria for that local government. So Doug showed a great example in their community input there in Rutherford of how they went to each community and they had different information from those citizens. So, and then you're presenting that. So, everything that's required for a single jurisdiction, if you're doing a system-wide plan, you need to have enough representation from each of those individual towns to be able for that one town to submit it. That makes sense. I'm talking in circles, maybe. Let's go to the next part, and I'll be glad to clarify any of that. So the Greenway System Plan, this is a definition straight from the PARTIF application. And again, it's very similar to the system-wide plan, but we're looking at the Greenway system. So it could be a system of natural corridors. You have your vision and goals, your inventory, analysis of where those hubs will be. So think about some of the maps you saw on the screen today with the various hubs and where those connections are. Also, greenways usually have bringing in the ecologically, biologically significant areas. Floodways are typically part of that, so you need to make sure you identify those. And then mapping, of course, an action plan, roles and responsibilities implementing the plan. So this will be very important on those jurisdictions. And as RG was just mentioning, okay, when this goes in, who's going to be responsible for maintaining it after it goes in? Maybe it's a joint venture in installing it, but then how's it going to be maintained? And you should have those agreements in place ahead of time to assist. Public involvement, again, this will be a key point. How the local and government involved a broad range and representative numbers. So if you're doing a system-wide plan where you have multiple jurisdictions, again, make sure that each individual jurisdiction follows those criteria, and their public information or their public input could stand on its own for that component of the plan. And again, cost information should also being there. So we do have a series of videos for applying for Park and Recreation Trust Fund grant. And here up in the top right corner, if you go to this go.ncsu.edu PARTF, P-A-R-T-F app video, this takes you to our YouTube channel, and there's 5 different videos, and these screenshots that I just showed you from the grant manual are in the score system and definitions. So you can look through that and see more detail, hear a little more detail on how to do those plans. And the plans are, it is outlined in that video exactly the criteria that are needed. So the application is out now. May 1st is the deadline if you're looking at that. And then hopefully next summer will be the selection process. And RRS, we can assist you with planning if you have questions, if you want us to review any plans, any surveys that you have. Any of our consultants can do that. If you're working on a specific grant application with PARTF, contact your regional consultant. Here we all are. And we'll be glad to assist and just give you feedback on things. Always definitely ask questions. All right, are there any other questions? That's all I had. And I'll,
So Charlene, there's a couple questions.
Okay.
Okay, maybe just one. Is anybody aware of a good example of a Greenway transition plan to meet DOJ requirements? I think they're referring to ADA compliance.
I don't know.
That question was from ADA compliance. Yes, if anybody could chime in on ADA compliance on their greenways.
Let me find the.
I don't know, Judy. What do you think?
I think you're fading out, Judy. I'm going to unmute everybody too, just so you know.
You sure that's a good idea?
No.
Yeah, RG, Charlene, I've got a question.
Okay.
The part of grant applications, that usually go in, the applicant, usually the municipality that section of Greenway would, are they generally the applicant? Is that correct?
Yeah, only
if you wanted to do that, we could do, if you do anything over 6 months, then you do get 1 month free.
All right, hang on, I'm going to mute everybody again. Yeah, RG, the only municipalities and county governments are eligible to apply. And I might have muted you, so sorry, I'll unmute you.
They used a Part F grant and matched to a North Carolina Water Resources grant to obtain about $200,000 in funding successfully, and that went really well. But it was the town of North Wilkesboro that applied successfully for those grants.
Yeah, so and the match can be local. The town or county will be the lead and responsible for it, but where that match comes from doesn't matter, you know. So if you're getting it from another grant, from private foundations, that's suitable for the match.
Thanks.
And I did mute everybody, so sorry. We had to go back.
Yeah, we have as Ben knows, we have a stretch that we would like to pursue over here in the Yadkin Valley with the RAILS program, much like they have done successfully there in Rutherford County. And I looked with great interest at that. We have a section of railroad that's from the Yadkin Valley Railroad Company that's dead between the town of Roaring River, just east of the Wilkesboros, along the Yadkin River, and happens to parallel, it's on the Over Mountain Victory Trail, within that mile of distance that would qualify to be in the Over Mountain Victory Trail. So it'd be an exceedingly good candidate if we can get the railroad to partner with us to expand the Greenway / Over Mountain Victory Trail through there.
Let us know how the railroad goes. they're always tough.
Yes.
Yeah. So in general, just kind of wrapping up with, any plan, whether it's, part of the Park and Recreation Trust Fund or any grant application, or even if you're not applying for grants, planning, strong advocate of planning and having these partnerships and collaborations, but certainly having that can help you with any funding, even if you're going to private foundations. You're showing it's like going to the bank and getting a loan. You have a business plan in place. So I think any of these we can, we can take these and use this information and kind of just build those relationships. But it's not something that you can do immediately. Go back to some of the information that Judy shared at the beginning. Definitely, you got to build these relationships, plan for time for this. I think with Doug's example and just the branding across all the jurisdictions, that could be an entire webinar in itself, I think. And I've heard some other challenges on those type of things, but it's very important, and it's kind of how you start and get those going. And the question on ADA, the transition plan, I'll see what we can find out. We can certainly search for some others. Ben, I know the Park Service always has that in mind with what they do, but I mean their lens of looking at that's a little different because they're a federal agency. But we can certainly find some of those. If you look in the group chat, please click on the link and complete the evaluation for this. We appreciate your time and look forward to your feedback on how we can keep improving and providing information to you through webinars. And we can also email those out. If there's any other questions, thanks everybody. Thanks to our speakers. Very informative session. I've learned some things today too.
Thanks everybody. This is Jen. Thanks for participating, and thanks presenters for taking the time to help us out.
All right. And thanks, RG, for your hyperspeed presentation. It was awesome.
All right, guys. If y'all have any questions for our presenters that you think about afterwards, I will send their contact information along with a reminder to participate in the evaluation later on today. Thanks again for participating today.
Thanks, Ben.
Bye.